on the third episode of a special 4-part Voices from Beyond series.
Raudive, are you there?
Oh my God!
From deep inside the mysterious archives of the Newkirk Museum of the Paranormal, it's the Haunted Objects Podcast.
Voices from Beyond.
You want to give people a listen to what a normal SB7 spirit box? This is the one, like, if you watch paranormal television, this is typically what you're watching people use.
Yeah. So you can hear that. Down, 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 down. Pretty easy to hear that sort of pattern and to kind of get into the state of that flow.
Compare that to the Frank's box.
Yeah. It's so weird.
The tide comes and goes.
Uh-huh. It takes you away.
The tide comes and goes.
Pulls you out into the deep of the ocean.
The ethereal waves upon which the voices of the dead are carried like ships in the night.
That was scary. That was scary.
I mean, that's the best way I can describe it.
I think it's pretty accurate, honestly.
I'm going to be very honest with you guys and say I was never a big fan of the spirit box.
No.
You know, as if you've been listening to this series, you already know that we've grown up as ghost hunters. Every single one of us. We've been very interested in chasing spirits.
Some would say you were a hater.
I was a hater, for sure. I mean, the first time I saw them, I was like, what is this nonsense? It's a radio. They're broken radios.
Yeah.
These are clearly not the voices of the dead. These are radio DJs. These are announcers. These are snippets of Aerosmith songs.
Yes, yeah.
I don't believe these are the spirits of the dead until we got a Frank's box.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, there's something much weirder happening with these. Why are they so different? You just heard yourself what the difference is between the thing that you see on all the television shows, the SB7, and then the Frank's box. What's the difference between these two? Well, the reason that the SB7 even exists is because of the Frank's box. This really is the granddaddy of all of the devices that you see ghost hunters using that involve radio sweeping. To get into the history of the Frank's box and why these things are so weird, we need to go back to Littleton, Colorado in 1995. Frank Sumption received a copy of a magazine he had a subscription to, Popular Electronics Magazine. It was the Halloween edition, and they did something in this edition of the magazine that they don't normally do. They had an entire section, a whole article that was dedicated to historical attempts to create devices to communicate with the dead. It's interesting because the guy who wrote the article, he didn't even attach his real name to it. He just called himself Konstantinos.
It's a good name.
After consuming this article, Frank Sumption got to work, and in his little workshop garage, he built something that I don't think anyone has given the proper amount of credit to. Something that is so much weirder than anyone could have anticipated until now. This is the Frank's box.
Paranormal researchers have long sought to capture the voices of the dead through recorded media. Unfortunately, electronic voice phenomena never allowed for instantaneous one-on-one conversation with ghosts. Enter Instrumental Transcommunication, or ITC, a method which claims to facilitate direct communication with the voices from beyond. At the heart of this modern approach to spirit communication is a device known as the Frank's box, the first of the so-called spirit boxes. This rare device employs rhythmically sweeping radio frequencies, producing a cascade of white noise. From the static emerge strange voices that some believe are the spirits of the dead. But these voices don't just talk, they respond. While machines derived from the Frank's box have become a primary tool in the modern ghost hunter's kit, the origins of the device suggest a more enigmatic purpose. You see, according to the machine's inventor, The spirit box was never meant to channel the dead. It was designed to communicate with something else. Join us as we delve into the history of ITC and confront the chilling implications of these technological attempts to reach beyond the grave. But we have to warn you, once you know where the voices are coming from, you'll never mistake them for merely ghosts again.
The Frank's box is something that is used for ITC, so to designate that from the previous episode, we were talking about EVP, electronic voice phenomena.
Yes.
Now we're talking about ITC, instrumental transcommunication, communication between worlds. It's real-time contact, right? So people like have drawn these lines in different places sometimes, but the
Right.
way that we're drawing it is EVP is when you listen back to a recording, and ITC is when it's like a direct conversation.
Yeah, so it feels like it's as close to having like a one-on-one in real life conversation as possible.
Right. Nobody ever tried calling like an EVP recorder a telephone to the dead.
Yes.
But ITC devices, things like the Frank's box, have literally been dubbed the telephone to the dead.
Got it.
So that is the distinction that we're making, at least in this series. Other people might have different distinctions.
Okay.
This is the one that we're making just for the purposes of this series.
That's where it can get a little bit confusing too, just because our first guy, Jurgensen, who we talked about last episode, was called the father of EVP. He made those bird sound recordings and heard his dead mother speaking to him. He also later in his, paranormal career got into ITC when he started using certain tones and having direct conversations with the radio.
Yeah.
And so there's a whole myriad of characters that sort of build up to this. So maybe we can sort of discuss them first.
While the development of the Frank's box starts around 1995, the Frank's box includes a bunch of different things inside of it. It's not just a radio. Most people think of it as just a radio.
Yeah.
There's more to it than that. Those things were all inspired by people that were referenced in that article. So we have to go back a little bit further than 1995. And in doing so, we'll give you a few of the biggest names from ITC, Instrumental Transcommunication. We'll give you some of their names and a little brief history of each one so you can see how these people inspired the creation of the ghost boxes that are in use in television today. Jurgensen was doing EVP work in the 50s. Remember, one of the things that we said was that the entities that were speaking to him, he believed that they were from outer space at first. He believed that they were extraterrestrials. This didn't start as a way to speak to the dead. Well, by the time the 60s rolled around, he got a message telepathically to use the radio.
Ooh.
What he would do is he connected a microphone to a radio receiver and then connected that to the tape recorder. And in this way, he started to have what he considered to be real-time communication with things on the other side, whatever those things were.
I think what's fascinating about this is you're starting to see, like with the Coons family in the cabin in Ohio, people are listening to the advice that they're being given from the other
Yes.
side to build things, and it's seemingly working very well for them.
Not just things, electronic devices. The Coons family were told to build essentially a battery, some
Yeah.
kind of a capacitor
Yeah.
that could hold energy that would allow these entities to manifest. And that was the 1800s. That was
Yeah.
the late 1800s. Well, now here in the 60s, you have Friedrich Jurgensen being told by the voices,
Yeah.
hey, use the radio as a medium. So what he would do is he would set the radio between frequencies where generally there's not much going on between there. It's just the static, the fuzz, which again, you start to see that over and over, even with EVP stuff.
I mean, you do that when you're searching for the radio. So you're literally
Yes.
talking. He would literally turn the dial
Yes.
and wait until he found a blank spot.
Yes.
And his magic one, I think they wrote, was 1485.
Wow.
1485.
Was his most current.
1485 is now what ITC researchers call the Jurgensen frequency.
Wow. It's like a liminal space, though, really, when you think about it. They're looking for that liminal spot.
As a quick aside, because we have to mention this will come back around later. Again, the Coons family in that cabin, they were getting messages from angels, something from not from this world. Friedrich Jurgensen, he's getting messages from what he believed were people from outer space. Now these entities are telling him, use the radio, tune it between the frequencies. Well, almost 10 years before that, there was a guy over here in the United States who was told the same thing by the Men in Black.
Uh-oh.
The guy who actually started the whole Men in Black thing, even though there's historically been sightings of these weird guys all throughout history, back in the 50s, Albert Bender, there was a book he released called Flying Saucers and the Three Men. This book recounts what is really the first modern appearance of the Men in Black. They looked a little bit different. We can put an image of his drawing on screen. They weren't the sort of shadowy government men. They were these weird dudes who dressed like old priests and had glowing eyes. That's what the Men in Black were.
Right.
They would appear to him after he started his UFO investigation group, his UFO club. They appeared to him. And when he would wake up after having one of these experiences, let me just read you what happened to him. I rubbed my eyes in bewilderment. I couldn't believe that what I had just experienced had been real. I must have dozed off and, with the telepathic experiment on my mind, must have had a terrifying dream as a result. Looking at the clock, I noticed it was 5 minutes past 6. As I sat up on the edge of my bed, I grew sick at my stomach, felt as if I had eaten something rotten. Had I really experienced something unearthly? I could hardly force myself to rise from the bed. My head still throbbed and the spots over my eyes retained the same puffed feeling. After a while, I got up from bed and walked about the room. I heard a humming, and I noticed that my radio was on. I turned it off, and I realized I'd not turned it on when I came into the room. The same thing had happened on previous visits from the Men in Black. I was beginning seriously to feel I might be losing my mind. The Men in Black told Albert Bender that if he needed to summon them, he should tune his radio between the stations.
Ew.
Because that could help them manifest.
All right.
The Men in Black have a direct connection to ITC that I don't hear enough people talking about.
No.
Well, the same thing was happening to Friedrich Jurgensen. The other thing to just remember is these guys were on opposite sides of the world, and they were experiencing the same phenomena at the same time.
Weird.
That's a weird thing.
Yeah.
That keeps coming up in a lot of different stuff. You might even hear us talk about that in season 3 of Hellier.
Probably. Yeah, you probably are.
You probably will.
There's a fairly safe chance you probably will.
There's some weird stuff that was happening around the world at the same time.
Yeah.
Strange that one UFO thing is happening and one person is having something they're just interpreting as like dead people thing.
Yeah.
After thinking it was originally UFOs.
Weird.
Happening at the same time. But he's not the only one. Going back just a little bit further, back in 1910, there was a guy by the name of Father Roberto Landel de Mora. This guy was a priest. He was first known to get into the experimentation with ITC around 1910, and he'd been filing patents for radio transmission equipment as early as 1901.
This sounds like a movie. I love the idea of like a priest who's like, it's like a horror movie, a priest who's doing ITC research. Like, oh, it sounds so good in this 1910.
Legend says he had a small box that he used to speak into and voices that would answer back from that box, but it was never released. Nobody knows what happened to it.
It's so mysterious.
The details around it are super mysterious.
Yeah.
No one's sure about this device. Who also, 1920s, Thomas Edison, the telephone to the dead.
Yep.
This is something that I think anybody who's ever been into EVPs has heard about. You've probably watched a documentary about it on the History Channel before. Everyone always talks about how Thomas Edison was working on a device that would allow him to speak to the dead.
It sounds like the description of the device sounds nothing like a telephone.
No, it sounds like a laser.
It does sound like a laser.
It was like a point of light that shot through the room
tube or something.
And you could see like particles in it. I don't know. That sounds to me like that. Have you heard recently there's these dudes who have been like taking DMT and then staring at a laser and like seeing the code of the Matrix in it?
I haven't, but I absolutely love this. I love this.
Guys on drugs, man.
Yeah.
They just, they have a way of seeing their way out of the Matrix, don't they?
Yeah, something like that.
The Matrix is everywhere when you're on drugs. Anyway, that's kind of what he was working on, some kind of weird laser.
Yeah.
There were never, as far as anyone knows, any big public demonstrations of this thing, but there were a few rumored private ones where he had allegedly shown people how this thing had worked. Even just a few years ago, wasn't there a hidden diary entry that was discovered?
Oh, that's so cool.
It's like an old copy of his diary that had been published previously, and they realized that in like the original one, there was, for some reason, this one chapter was not published, and it was the chapter about how he was interested in the spirit world. So it's like it was like redacted.
Yeah.
Of
Someone
course.
was like, we're just going to take this one out of here, sneak this little guy right out of here.
It's like having your friend delete your browser history when you die.
That's exactly what it is.
That's what they did to Thomas Edison.
Yes, exactly.
Excuse me, sir. Would you please rip these pages out of my diary so nobody knows that I was thinking about ghosts so much?
So great.
Yeah, anyway. So a lot of inventors. People, famous inventors, have a rich history of being involved in this type of stuff. Now we get into a few more modern inventors. There is a fantastic story. Some of you who are listening to this podcast might be familiar with this. This has been a favorite of this group for a while. We've talked about this one for a long time.
I think we've all hit on it at different times in our lives. And like the moment you find out about it for the first time is a big deal.
It is, because you see this device in action, and there's audio of this, there's video of this. There was a documentary not too long ago that was released with some footage of this. You hear about this thing. You see there's a press conference that was held for this thing, and you go, holy shit, why aren't we doing this? There's literally a telephone to the dead. You can have one-on-one communication with dead people. It's stunning. This was a device called the Spiricom.
Great name.
It's the
Excellent
Spiricom?
name.
Come on, get out of here.
One. Give me one of those.
Sounds very cool, but it gets sad very quick.
Oh, no.
Just hang with us. Hang with us. There's a guy named George Meek. This guy was like a very wealthy businessman. He invented a bunch of like air conditioning stuff.
Yeah.
So again, there's these actual inventors.
Yeah.
Well, this guy, George, he goes to a seance. And during the seance, one of the spirits gives him an idea. Recurring theme here. So in the 1970s, he begins work in a small lab in Philadelphia to create this device, the Spiricom. He consulted mediums when it came to building this to try and get some ideas from them, potentially get some help from the other side. He gets advice from the spirit world. And after numerous unsuccessful attempts at creating this device, he becomes acquainted with an engineer who just happens to be psychic. This guy's name is Bill O'Neill.
Oh, Bill O'Neill. Here he comes.
Wait till you see a photo of Bill O'Neill. This guy, he claimed to have already been able to make two-way communication with the spirit world.
Yeah.
So he convinces George Meek to invest $500,000.
Wow.
So these two guys, they throw in together and they start building the Spiricom device. One of the first contacts that they have is somebody on the other side of the veil who helps them, spends hours with them, talking them through how to build this device. Allegedly, a dead NASA scientist, Dr. Mueller. So this guy comes through, he gives them advice on how to do this, and they debuted this thing at a press conference in 1982. And the footage of this press conference, it looks packed.
Yeah.
It's in a nice room.
It is in a nice room. It looks very official also. It's just the best.
Our proof consists of many hours of conversations with some among the so-called dead.
Although there was no live communication with the dead, so to speak, Meek played excerpts of conversations supposedly recorded in 1981 between one of his research assistants and Dr. George Mueller, an American scientist who had died of a heart attack 14 years earlier.
Well, they're announcing essentially to the press, we have achieved communication with the other side.
Thank God.
If you wonder what this sounded like, check out these clips of this thing in action.
2:15. Just forget what time it is. What's that, sir?
The voice is sometimes friendly with O'Neill.
Yes, that's right, Doctor. I'm sorry, sir. Please forgive me. That's all right, William. That's all right. All right, sir.
At other times, it's menacing.
Oh, Dr. Mueller? All all right, sir.
I'm sure after watching these absolutely stunning clips, you're asking yourself, why in the world don't I have a special Spiricom phone in my home where I'm just picking it up and talking to grandma anytime I want to?
There should be one in every house in America.
Well, we built our own.
Doesn't it sound familiar?
These things are called an electrolarynx. They vibrate your larynx.
I wonder if that thing costs $500,000.
Holy shit. It absolutely did not.
$500,000.
It absolutely did not. These are not cheap, though. I mean, this is a cheap one. This one doesn't sound the best, but you can get these things. I mean, they're made for people who've had tracheotomies.
Yeah.
Because they can't vibrate their own voice boxes anymore.
Yeah.
So they use one of these to vibrate the voice box, and then you just make you just make the motions with your mouth.
This is why you don't reveal magic tricks to kids. It ruins their view of the world and they stop believing in magic.
In his possessions when he passed away as part of the estate was an artificial larynx.
An electrolarynx they found in his estate. I mean, this is the thing. I've read that too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people tried to get the Spiricom to work without Bill O'Neill.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't.
You got O'Neilled.
I think, what did he say? Didn't he say that like the ghosts have moved on?
Yeah, he left.
Sure.
There was a journalist who wanted to like watch him do it, I think is what it was. And then he was like, well, we can't because the ghost left.
And when you watch any of this footage of Bill O'Neill channeling these entities, you'll notice a couple things. One, they never speak at the same time.
Yeah. I think there's another one that's a little bit more obvious, which is...
He only will do it with his back turned to the camera. And so it's like, notice you can't see his right hand. Anytime you hear the ghost talking, it's probably him with this thing up to his voice going like,
I am the ghost. Once you know how it's done, it kind of ruins the illusion.
Yeah, probably.
Hey, not only that, there's 3 parts to Bill O'Neill, right? He's an engineer.
Oh, this is the best part.
Yes.
He's a psychic.
He's a psychic and
a ventriloquist.
He's a ventriloquist. This guy.
Just on the side, it had nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
Can you show us a picture of him as his ventriloquist photo?
Yeah.
Would you give this guy $500,000? Would you give this guy $500,000
Honestly,
to build?
I'd love to see what he would do with it. I'm not gonna lie.
I can show you right now.
Oh my God, Greg, this is the best Halloween costume of all time.
Oh my God.
This is a deep cut Halloween costume.
Ventriloquist Bill O'Neill. We can all be different Spiricom people.
Yeah, for Halloween. Listen, if you're coming to the Haunted Objects live
I'll
tour,
dress up like the doll.
Somebody's got to be Mueller.
Please
Yes.
dress up as your favorite ITC researcher.
Yes.
A special prize if you dress up as Bill O'Neill.
Oh my God, that would be incredible.
Look at him, he's a little cowboy.
He's a little but he's got the thing that's confusing is he's wearing a white cowboy hat, which means he's a good guy. So I don't know what to think.
We could talk all episode about the Spiricom, but since it's not real, it's not worth spending a whole lot more time on.
Yeah,
but if you're curious about this, we do have we're unsealing it just for you guys. There is a record that we have that's a very rare recording of instructions from the Spiricom and recordings of ghosts from the Spiricom, quote unquote ghosts. Mm-hmm. Connor's doing an entire article about it. So if you join the museum, you can read this whole thing and even hear some of these recordings, more recordings from the Spiricom. All right, so we've had kind of a bummer vibe in the 80s.
Yeah.
ITC took a hit.
Yeah.
But in the 90s, there's a resounding recovery because Mark Macy, who you'll recognize from the previous episode when we were talking about EVPs, he's the guy who was getting the Raudive phone calls, the recordings on his answering machine, this is Konstantin Raudive. That's the guy, right? It was crazy the amount of contact people were having in the 90s, particularly the groups that Mark Macy was working with. They were getting phone calls from people. They were getting recordings on from radios, from
answering machines. Yeah.
Well, we're actually, I think it's worth playing a quick clip of what some of those things sounded like.
This is Konstantin Raudive speaking. We just tried to contact Meek. We succeeded, but he didn't get what we wanted to tell him. Here we were talking to him that we tried to make a mediumistic contact to Dean Peterson, and he wanted to read you will have strengthened the bridge, the mediumistic bridge, to our Timestream group. This is Konstantin Raudive speaking.
They all start hearing from Raudive.
Yeah.
Raudive won't shut the up.
Raudive's got mega FOMO, and he's like, he's like a stage 10 clinger.
George Meek was having contacts with Raudive. Mark Macy was having contacts with Raudive.
Yeah.
Sarah Estep, who we talked about in the previous episode about EVPs, she was having regular contacts with Raudive. Raudive, from the other side, was very, very invested in people getting this stuff right. Does that mean that those were the only people who were like having actual contact?
Yeah.
Or is it the opposite? I don't know. There's a lot of drama happening in this community in the mid-90s. Sarah Estep, very important because she's one of the people who told everyone the importance of electret condenser microphones.
True, yes.
Which is, if you remember in our last episode, it's what we certainly seem to believe is the secret behind a good EVP recorder.
Yeah.
Having a shitty, cheap electric condenser microphone.
Yes.
One of the things that I really dig about Mark Macy is the idea that he believes that a lot of these contacts need some kind of a mental phenomena.
Sure.
Almost like a telepathic type of contact where you have to establish mental contact with whoever it is that you're trying to reach in order for that to even happen electronically.
Yeah, it's like there has to be some kind of resonance there.
Yes.
That's sort of like almost as important as everything else.
Yes.
Which is an interesting idea, I think. Specifically, like in this case, I think it's really cool.
I think that becomes an even more interesting idea as we start to get into the Frank's box and some of the ideas around that. But I don't see that explored very much with many other ITC researchers, particularly even today.
Seems, and I think it also has something to do with even ESP connections as well, right?
Yes.
That you've got to be on the same wavelength as somebody else in order to transmit and receive messages too. So it's just that, but with dead people as well.
Yes.
And I think that should be stressed too, is that there's this group, Sarah Estep, again, here she is appearing in Mark Macy's book. Sarah suggested I purchase a small electret microphone from Radio Shack. She was the founder of the American Association for Electronic Voice Phenomena, AAEVP. Mark Macy's group, INIT, they're very much into the dead people angle in a lot of regards. And so I think that in a weird way, that didn't cross over into the ghost hunting community.
No, not much.
As we talk about it, right?
Not much.
Because it's the middle of the morning and they're sitting there. There's not a ghost hunting aspect to it.
Yeah.
It's let's build transmissions and contacts. I mean, in that book, he has a story about how he's trying to figure out how big of an antenna he can get without his neighbors getting mad at him. Stuff like that.
That's
so it's like
fun.
a real effort to try this. The other thing, he's in Colorado too. So
that's weird. Yeah. All these guys in Colorado.
That is very weird.
What's going on in Colorado?
We'll talk about that later.
The other thing, if we're talking about how important your mental state is, Mark Macy believed your mental state was very important for even capturing EVPs. Well, Konstantin Raudive believed this too, even beyond the grave, because he was a bit of a narc.
Yeah, he really didn't like drugs.
He did not like drugs.
Yeah.
He's gone on record from the grave with Mark Macy to tell him, drugs are not good.
Yeah, he's like basically a Dare commercial from beyond.
There's a quote here. On another occasion, 5 of us got together in the Luxembourg flat of Maggie Harsh-Fischbach in the summer of '94, and the deep voice of our spirit friend Konstantin Raudive broke through the radio sounds, saying in his northern European accent, Mark Macy, you know by experience, Mark, how dangerous drugs of all kinds can be. Try to warn humanity that they not only alter their present lives on your side, but also influence in a negative way their future lives. Go on with your experiences and you will see the bridge to the States will soon be strengthened. So Raudive really did not want people doing drugs, which was weird to me because I feel like everybody who ever has a weird contact with the other side has done it on a drug.
I mean, yeah. It's,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the end of that passage, Mark Macy's like, I mean, I did marijuana a few times in college, but
Marijuana.
He's like, why is he calling me out? He's like
Specifically,
having
yeah.
a self-conscious moment about it.
Wait till Raudive finds out about the guys staring into lasers on DMT.
The DMT guys.
Seeing the Matrix
Those
code.
guys, Raudive's not even talking to them.
He's not even talking to them. Yeah, that's how you know it's not working.
Straight edge only.
One of the other weird things that we should cover is that weird trickster voice, that spooky entity voice. You heard it in the last episode.
It's so scary.
There's another quote here that says, on the morning of April 5th, 1996, 7 months after the meeting at Dartington, I was eating breakfast when the phone rang. I answered, and a bizarre voice said, "This is Konstantin Raudive." The short message was repeated 3 times in 3 distinct voices, none of them being the deep, friendly, and familiar voice of our spirit colleague, Konstantin Raudive. The first voice could be best described as mechanical, the second as spiteful, and the third as demonic.
Ooh.
Fortunately, I captured the disturbing message on audio tape. After studying it, I considered some possibilities. Perhaps it was a prank by someone on Earth, or a prank by someone in spirit, or perhaps it was a genuine attempt by our spirit colleagues to contact me through the energy field that was strained, causing the message to break up and sound surreal.
Yeah, it's a spooky recording too. We'll play it again here so you can hear it.
Well, why doesn't Raudive talk to us?
You know, it's funny. We're always lamenting the men in black aren't talking to us.
Mm-hmm.
We've never really tried to talk to Raudive, though. Like, that's the
true.
thing. I've never really thought much about Raudive.
Your Raudive is like a vampire from Saturn.
Yes, that is true.
There's an
That's true.
entity
We
that's
will
coming through.
Yeah.
Talk about that next week.
And maybe we have to take a page out of Mark's book and you know, make that connection. Have we really never made that connection? So maybe there's an aspect of that that's required.
Yeah.
Should turn it on for a second.
You want to turn it on?
See if he says hello.
You want to see if
Oh my God, I would die.
anybody's here to say hello? Okay, well, we're going to turn the Frank's box on and see if Raudive will come through and say something. Are you ready? Raudive, are you there? Konstantin Raudive, will you speak to us? Did you not hear that?
Raudive? It did. Oh my God! That's crazy.
It worked.
It did it.
That said Konstantin,
It
right?
definitely
I think so.
I think it said Konstantin.
It certainly sounded like it.
Wear your headphones for that one.
Sorry, everybody.
All right, thanks, man.
Okay.
All right, we'll be
You know
in
what's
touch.
funny? My instinct was to turn it off.
Sorry.
Get out! Get out!
No, don't tell him to get out. We just
I don't
got
want him to tell
come
me to
here.
stop smoking pot.
Oh, God damn it.
Oh my God. What
That
the
was weird. A few times I almost heard his timbre too. That like, this is Konstantin Raudive.
I think we found the opening.
Oh boy.
It's right there. We're calling for him. Put the hat back on. Put the hat back on.
Holy shit.
That's cool.
That was weird.
Well, maybe he will talk to us if we ask.
Yeah.
Good.
We only have one more group to talk about before we get into the Frank's box and Frank's Sumption and all of the weirdness that has caused, the way that changed the world of the paranormal forever. This group, though, is a little bit different than the other ones because this group exists on the other side of the veil. At this point, mid-90s, Mark Macy's being scolded about smoking pot by Raudive.
Called out directly. Mark,
So
quit the
funny.
pot, dude.
Knock the pot off, Mark.
Yeah.
Like your dad.
Yeah.
And everybody's still a little bit stung from Spiricom. The hoax kind of hurt the ITC world. Well, you'd never have to fear because there's a group of dead superheroes out there. Some of the most famous dead folks from history who've banded together from beyond the veil to help ITC researchers. And their name was Timestream.
when the paranormal lurks in every shadow, and each mysterious artifact hides a ghostly tale, one show dares to uncover the truth. The Haunted Objects Podcast. Now you can wear the mystery. Introducing the official Haunted Objects merchandise. Hats, shirts, pins, and more. All designed by independent artists, manufactured by small businesses, and carrying the undeniable essence of the unexplained. Embrace the legend. Wear the mystery. Visit planetweird.store today.
Timestream. Timestream is a supergroup, kind of like the Power Rangers or the Planeteers.
Like the Avengers.
Only they're dead.
Yeah.
And yet they can still help people. There's a specific group of people they were reaching out to here on this side of the veil. Maggie Harsh Fishbach and her husband Jules kind of headed up this contact session. They were in contact with this group of spirit colleagues. Here's the thing. I want to stress this. There's a Los Angeles Times article. There's an LA Times article that talks about this. We'll put it on screen where they list some of the people that they've been in contact with who are members of this Timestream ITC group. Let's give you a few of them. Jules Verne, Albert Einstein, Madame Curie, Thomas Edison, Michael Landon. There was a group of Vikings that were part of this.
You got to have some Vikings in there.
And a cat named Quink. I love that there's a cat. It's like any good cartoon.
It sounds like the Suicide Squad or something.
It kind of does sound like this could be a modern Hollywood film.
Yeah, it does.
Should we pitch this?
I think maybe, yeah.
We should pitch this.
We have our setting too. It was the planet Marduk.
Oh, yes.
And they met in a temple on Marduk where they could communicate to Earth. The other thing is her husband's name was Jules. I've only ever heard of two male Jules in my life.
Yep.
And they're both in this group. And do you think when Jules Verne talked to her husband, Jules, he was like, you Jules or me Jules? I don't know. That's why I'm so confused.
There's a quote here from Mark Macy's book. It says, when the ethereal beings show themselves in the astral worlds, they glow and pulsate in magnificent colors reminiscent of a rainbow. A team of astral beings, deceased relatives, scientists, celebrities, and others were coming together around the work of Maggie Harsh Fishbach to assist in the new and exciting project of opening channels of communication with their old home, Earth. There's only one problem. Much like any good movie, their only endorsement was IBM.
Oh, no.
They could not use anything but IBM computers.
Yes.
This is a movie.
It is. It really, really is.
They could only use IBM computers. There's a
This is an article from Entertainment Weekly.
Oh my God! This is a movie.
Yeah.
Where he said this.
He said that I suppose if an experimenter started getting serious with a Mac, the spirit could probably come onto the Mac. Says Macy, but so far they're only using IBM compatibles. They've got a advertising partnership already built in.
Already.
One of the things that they had to watch out for, any of the people that are involved in ITC, is we've already established that there was a weird negative Konstantin Raudive, like a fake Konstantin doppelganger contacting people.
The trickster version.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did they know that they could trust the contacts that were coming through? This was a genuine concern for these people. Fortunately, Timestream, they had a way around that. They had a code word. These negative entities, the doppelgangers, they could read your mind.
Yeah.
They were telepathic. So the code word could not be an archetypal image. It couldn't be something like zebra because you would see it in your mind when you thought about it, and they could easily go, well, that's a zebra. We're going to steal that. And then they would have the code word.
It's a great idea.
It is.
That Macy's talking about. Yeah.
For sure. So they had to come up with something that wasn't archetypal, and it was like 4 or 5 syllables. It was something that was totally different. Timestream came up with a rather strange and enchanting 12-letter word of 4 or 5 syllables that was not easy to pronounce, nor could it be found in Webster's dictionary. I believe that there is a large group of people that know how to pronounce this word. Dana, you're one of them.
I am definitely one of them. The word is Silmarillion. if you're
why would that be easy for you to pronounce?
Well, if you're a fan of Tolkien, you probably have read the Silmarillion.
I know. How do we keep making Lord of the Rings jokes and we're on Frodo's network?
I know.
Well, the Silmarillion is basically the Bible of the Lord of the Rings universe, right?
Yeah, arguably though, the way that I'm thinking about it now is like this was before Lord of the Rings, the films came out, which maybe made it more popular in the world. It's not like they weren't popular books or The Hobbit wasn't a popular book. The Silmarillion is still not popular, anywhere near as popular as the other books.
That's true.
But it's a very specific word.
What this is telling us is there's a certain kind of person that's into ITC.
Yeah.
A nerd.
Hey.
I can tell you there is one person who was not a nerd, though. Mark Macy.
Mark Macy smoking on that pipe.
Because Mark Macy said, but the long, meaningless word created by our spirit friends summoned up no mental images whatsoever, breaking the subtle communication links among minds. I don't think Mark Macy read Lord of the Rings.
Maybe not. I think that's probably a good chance that he probably did not.
That's so funny. So anyway, only real Timestream people knew the code.
Yeah.
And when the Timestream folks needed to contact them, they would say, yeah, I said, they would come through and they would, Konstantin Raudive would say, like, it's the Silmarillion is the code word.
Yeah, he knew the code.
Or whoever was doing the voice of Konstantin Raudive. Maybe was a Lord of the Rings fan.
Even if we put our skeptic hats on for a second, and if Mark Macy's not duping us with these voices,
yes,
then maybe he's being duped.
Sure.
And if that's the case, then it's somebody within his own group.
Yeah.
That's calling him and using this code word.
Right.
Because it was only spread amongst the group, supposedly, right?
Right.
Or it's actually the ghost of a Latvian psychologist.
Listen, there's so many people who've contributed to ITC in some way or another. It would be an entire series unto itself if we were going to talk about all of them. But these are really the heavy hitters.
Yeah.
We just wanted to give you a background of the people who were having these contacts, who were developing these things. Like, this brings us all the way up to 1995. And this is when Frank Sumption is inspired to create something strange. He sees this magazine article in Popular Electronics that uses a lot of the techniques that are being talked about by all the people we just covered. And he says, there's something to this. I can build one of these things. And he does. The Frank's box is incredibly rare and yet somehow unbelievably ubiquitous when it comes to ghost hunting. It's the thing that you think about when you think about a sweeping radio circuit. This is the thing that started the ghost box craze. Everything that you see on television, all the people that you see using these things on your favorite YouTube channels, on TikTok, they were developed because of this box in front of us right now. We were lucky that we got to use one in season 2 of Hellier. The one that you see us use in the episodes, it was borrowed. It was borrowed from a friend of ours who has like 20 of these things. And when we were asked to return it, we were heartbroken because we had gotten such good activity around these things. We didn't know, it's hard to go back to an SB7.
Sure, yeah.
Every single one of these Frank's boxes is different. They all have something special about them, and there's just something strange.
When you look at some of the other instruments that people use specifically as paranormal research devices, they lack that kind of artfulness.
Sure.
And there's something about each of them. They each have their own personality. Frank gave something of himself to each one of them, and you really, really feel that when you look at them. When you take the time to kind of go through a series of photos and look at them, you go, wow, there's something that they seem as if they all come from the same family, but each one of them has its own unique identity almost.
Yeah.
They're just absolutely mesmerizing. It's so interesting.
And these things were just made out of devices that Frank was ripping apart in his garage.
Whatever he had access to, basically.
They were very specific ideas, which we'll talk about how he came to some of those. But on screen right now, Connor's flipping through what is the most extensive list of the boxes that Frank created.
Wow.
And you look at them, they're so different.
Yeah.
All of them are so different from each other.
They're so artful though, and they're beautiful. Like every single one of them is just it's a piece of art. It's something beautiful to look at. You can see how they're familiar, but each one is different.
There's ours. That's ours.
Yeah, there's ours right there.
The Ghost Man too. That's ours. Here's what's crazy. Again, there's only about 180 of these things, and I think that it adds to the sort of like folk art element, knowing that each one is a very unique piece with the unique devices inside of it. we got ours on eBay.
Yes.
Can you believe that?
We were very lucky, and it was almost fated. It was like the perfect moment.
The minute that I saw this thing listed, I snagged it immediately.
Yeah.
Because the chances of running into another one are so slim. Look at this. Cool. That one's cool. There's always art all over these things. There are different tuners that are used in some of them. There's different boxes that they're housed in.
Some of them have crystals inside of them. Some of them are different. Like, they're just, every single one of them is just something so interesting. It's so interesting to look at.
Frank was from Colorado.
Yeah.
Frank passed away in 2014. It was very sad. I remember this very clearly. I was Facebook friends with Frank.
Yeah.
He was active at the same time in Colorado doing events at the Stanley Hotel around the same time you were there, right?
Yeah, I would have been there too.
So
and it bothers me so much that I didn't connect with him at all.
So weird.
If I could go back, and
pick his brain,
and have conversations with Frank, because I would have been working at the hotel at the time that he was appearing at a couple of these small conferences and events and things like that. So we would have crossed paths, or we had to have maybe been in the same room together. So I'm kick myself at that a little bit. But then I look back and I'm like, well, I was 19, and I bet if Frank would have talked to me, I would have been like, did you know there's a ghost of a woman down in the conference? The mindset was not there.
Yeah.
So, there's that credit. So he probably would have been annoyed, because he seemed kind of annoyed by most ghost hunting types, like I was back then. But still, Colorado, I mean, he grew up 10 minutes from where I grew up and spent, almost all of my life. And so something about that area. And maybe we'll talk about that in the next episode too.
He was in the military. When he was stationed in Germany, he got very interested in ham radios because he needed to find a way to create long distance radio so he could listen to his UFO shows.
Of course.
I mean, I can feel that.
Yeah.
I get that. It sucks when you don't have access to the coast to coast AM when you're really into it. You know what I mean? So that got him into the idea of long distance radio. So he had a little bit of know-how. He actually worked tech at high schools and middle schools and stuff out in Colorado, right?
Yeah, public school system. So he would have been the IT guy for the school district.
Let's go back to this article. The Popular Electronics article that came out in October of 1995. This article, again, it was sort of, I hesitate to even call it a fluff piece. It was just sort of a seasonal spooky piece.
Yeah.
There's actual diagrams in there on how to build a Raudive diode, how to perform 4 or 5 different types of communication. There's the microphone method. There's the recording method. There's the radio method. It's pretty detailed, actually. And it inspired Frank. Frank saw this and went, well, I can build one of these things. And so he decides to start messing with it. The fun thing was he wrote in not to complain like everybody else was doing, because there were people that were really upset about this article.
Sure.
There were a lot of super hardcore, scientifically minded, skeptical people who were like, I can't believe you would encourage this and tell people that ghosts are real, et cetera, et cetera. No. Frank wrote in because he was upset he couldn't get it to work.
Oh, so he tried it and he couldn't get it to work at all.
He tried it and he could not get this stuff to work right. And so he just sort of moved on.
Yeah.
He started playing with a device that you can still download now. There's an app that you can get called EVP Maker. It's a program that was made for Windows computers. It's
not Macs.
Not Mac. It's weird. The ghosts don't like Macs.
What the heck?
That's so. The world's changed a lot since then. Didn't have quite the licensing power, probably. Why don't ghosts like Macs?
I don't know.
That's weird. Anyway, this software, EVP Maker, it was by this German guy named Stefan Bien. It's a little weirder than you might imagine. It doesn't actually record audio for you and find EVPs in it. What you do is you either record your own audio, you can record your voice into the microphone on your computer, or you can upload any audio that you want. You put it into this program, and then you hit a button that says Make EVP.
It sounds very weird. When you hear it, it sounds
really
very weird.
And it jumbles all of your audio up. It chops it up.
Yeah.
And then uses a random number generator to mix it all up. And so it just gives you this weird sound that's supposed to have EVPs in it.
Random controlled phenome synthesis.
They call it random controlled phenome synthesis. It reminds me of William Burroughs' cut-up method.
Sure, yeah.
That a lot of like beat artists would use. Some people still use it today.
Yeah.
To take written text and mix it all up and sort of get a synchronistic message from either your subconscious or from the universe.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is interesting that there's all kinds of different artists who are making use of that type of thing.
The thing that I don't quite understand, and I'm curious as to what Frank's perspective would have been on this, is do you think that the EVPs are coming from within the recording of the mixed up voice? Or does the recording of the mixed up voice provide a nice background, a sound Play-Doh?
Having researched all of this ITC stuff, I think it would totally depend on who you ask.
Probably, yeah.
Because there's so many people that we've read that have different opinions on how this stuff works, where there's some people, I mean, we'll talk about this more in the next episode, but there's some people who believe that the ghost boxes themselves don't actually do anything except put your mind into a state that you'll kind of channel something that only you hear.
Yes.
So maybe that's part of the point of it. But then there's other people who believe that the sounds, the jumbled sounds are carrier waves for the entities to create speech out of or slip themselves into. Because it doesn't make sense to me, at least from the EVP Maker software, that there'd be any other recording than what you stick into it. And maybe it's some people believe it's literally synchronicity that creates these messages. And so the synchronistic use of those things being jumbled up the way they are is the way the universe wants you to hear those.
Okay.
Which is how the universe is speaking to you.
I think we've probably had too much experience utilizing tools like this that like we probably already have a pretty clear idea about what we think is what's going on.
But see, that's the thing. Again, it depends on who you ask, because there's some people who believe that literally the voices are in the static.
Sure.
Anyone can hear them the same way.
Yes.
I don't know if that's something that I believe. I could buy into the synchronistic aspect of it, maybe. But if I were to use EVP Maker, my way of using it would be to use it the same way we use the Estes method, where you create this really long loop.
Yeah.
And then you just sort of use that to lull yourself into a trance.
Yeah.
And you alone will hear what you're supposed to be channeling through. Kind of like Mark Macy talks about, like having that mental connection to something.
Sure, yes.
That's how I would use it.
I think I probably would agree with you on that.
I don't think that's how Frank was using it, though. Because one of the things that Frank started to say, and one of the reasons he moved on from that software, is that the entities that were speaking to him through that software started relaying messages from other entities that weren't computer savvy enough to use it.
Okay.
And because of that, he went, oh, I need to use a less technologically advanced way to speak with these things.
Weird. That's kind of interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's like almost easy to laugh at, but then the more you think about it, you're like, I mean, why not? Like that, it's an interesting theory, I think.
You'd never hear that. Like, this is one of the things. One of the things that I think is lost in a lot of modern ITC concepts is any kind of nuance on how this is working.
Yes, yeah.
And so it's just like, well, you turn this thing on and the ghosts can talk to you through it.
Like we just assume immediately, oh yeah, they know how to do it. But maybe there is something to that. That's really interesting.
And that's why Frank stopped using EVP Maker and decided he was going to go back to the schematics that were in this popular electronics magazine and try and make sense of it. He got really, really frustrated because he could not figure it out. There was something in it he could not figure it out. And guess what happens again? Raudive comes to him.
Oh my God, he's back!
Raudive comes back. This time in a dream.
Oh,
he doesn't get a phone call from Raudive.
Right.
Raudive doesn't show up and go, stop smoking pot.
Yeah, Mark, come on.
Come on, Mark.
Poor Mark.
Well, I'm sorry, Mark, if you are not into pot.
Mark's like, I smoked pot one time.
Mark's still around, by the way. You can go and research any of Mark Macy stuff. Shout out Mark Macy. He's out there. He's still keeping the flames of the ITC world lit. Frank did not get a phone call.
All right.
He didn't get an EVP. He had a dream.
Interesting. Okay.
And in the dream, Raudive admits to him, everything in my books is f***ed up. It's not right. He's like, they didn't get it right. There's a problem here. Here's how to fix the circuit and make the circuit work properly.
But it's so interesting, though, that you have another example of somebody or something from beyond the grave giving advice to someone.
Yes.
And saying,
then listening.
Yes. And that person going, okay, I'm going to take this advice into consideration. I'm going to utilize this. And then there's some sort of valuable growth in terms of whatever they're building or however they're thinking. It's so interesting.
Here's the thing. Still didn't work.
God damn it.
So he followed the instructions that the ghostly Raudive gave him in a dream.
Yes.
And said, this will fix the circuit. This will complete the diode.
Yeah.
Frank is super stoked about it, does it, and it still doesn't work.
Oh.
But fortunately, there was somebody else that decided to step in and give Frank a little help. Connor, why don't you read the passage from that book about Frank?
In 2004, Frank was sound asleep when one of these dreams came to him. He bolted upright in bed, he threw the covers off, and he dashed for the kitchen. Once there, he gathered up a writing pad, pens, and pencils, and he sat down and went to work, feverishly writing and drawing at the same time. He was working so fast that he didn't even stop to look over what he was doing. It was as if there was someone at the table with him. Frank was working so hard, it was as if he were in a trance. Norma sat and watched her husband for a little over an hour, and all in that time, Frank didn't say one word. Then he just stopped. He looked up at Norma. She could see that he was shaking badly, and he looked as if he wasn't sure what he had been doing or where he was. He sat there in a daze for a few minutes, and then he finally glanced down at his notebook. He was still unsure of what he was looking at, but as he went from the notebook to the drawings scattered over the table, a look of disbelief came to his face. Frank and Norma sat talking for hours after that, well into the early morning as the sun rose over Colorado. Frank told her he had been dreaming and how they, the aliens, had shown him what to do. He vaguely remembered getting out of bed, but after that, it had all become a blur. Norma, for her part, was skeptical, but as she had watched her husband for more than an hour in a trance, she had no other explanation for what had occurred, and so she was inclined to believe what Frank was telling her. Again, the circuit from the popular electronics magazine was the basis for what Frank had just designed, but as he looked over what he had drawn and written in his dream state, he realized that at last, the problems with the circuit had been solved. Shortly after Frank's midnight epiphany, he began working on how to put the whole thing together into a usable package. He began a series of tests and rebuilds to perfect his new design. Frank spent many hours down in the basement workshop, poring over circuit boards, building and rebuilding them over and over again, and then taking them apart and rebuilding them once more until they finally met his demanding standards. This procedure took months, but when he had completed the boards, they were as perfect as he was going to get them. Then and only then did he start to build his now famous Frank's boxes.
Oh, the aliens again! This is the third time. You can see a pattern is starting to form here. The extraterrestrials are very interested in people being able to build devices to speak to the dead. Are we just assuming that it's dead people all the time because that's what most people interpret this as? It doesn't ever seem to really start that way, does it? The aliens, again, come to somebody and say, no, do it this way. This is how you contact us. What is happening?
Do you believe that an ordinary object can be cursed? You will. Join Greg and Dana Newkirk, two of the world's only full-time paranormal researchers and hosts of the Haunted Objects podcast, for a spine-tingling, interactive evening of true supernatural tales told by the very people who lived them.
And he starts to stand up, and I go, oh, that's it. I'm actually going to die. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, how long can I hold this guy off while Dana runs screaming into Gary, Indiana in the middle of the night?
Dare to lock eyes with the restless face. Uncover the dark secrets contained within the Catskills chrome. Learn the fiery truth behind the cursed crying boy paintings. And more. But that's not all. In this show, you'll leave with a ghost story of your own by becoming part of the Newkirk's most daring experiment yet. The creation of the world's most haunted dolls. Your energy. Your intent.
Oh my gosh, her eyes look like it just moved.
Your fears. All woven into vessels that only you can awaken. Haunted Objects Live. You'll laugh, you'll scream, you'll sleep with the lights on. Visit newkirktour.com.
We get a lot of stuff in the mail. 9 times out of 10, we don't experience anything. But that last 10% is where things get really interesting. And occasionally, there's 1% that changes the way that we think about haunted objects.
We bind it to the nails, and we release it.
The Unbinding, now available on Blu-ray, exclusively at planetweird.store.
This is something that you don't ever hear people talk about. I don't know why more people don't talk about this. The birth of the Spirit Box radio was to talk to aliens.
I'd argue that the origin of it is much more interesting than even where it has eventually gone to, just being a tool to communicate with the dead. The origin of it is much more interesting than where it is now.
I feel like we sort of weirdly fell into using a spirit box to talk to ultra-terrestrials, extraterrestrials, whatever they are. I mean, we don't even really know, but they seem extraterrestrial. They seem to present themselves that way to us. And there are weird things that we hear come out of these sometimes that don't sound like dead people. But that happens over and over again. Again, first episode of this series, the people who were using the spirit trumpet, which became associated with channeling voices of the dead, they were talking to angels, something from outside of this realm of existence. They weren't dead people at first. EVPs, Jurgensen, talking to UFOs. What the heck is going on?
It's like it barges in, regardless of what that person's intention is. Inevitably, it seems to always kind of go in this direction if you've done it long enough.
It's weird again to see aliens, something extraterrestrial, show up in here, explicitly not dead people, giving instructions to people who are listening to them and building these devices. And then ghost hunters get a hold of them, and it immediately becomes a thing to talk to ghosts, to talk to dead people.
Why do you think that is in that era?
I mean, maybe it's that ghosts are easier to believe in than aliens, you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably was also that ghost hunting television was maybe becoming really popular at that point in time. And they were looking for more interesting ways to do things on TV. And this was like a very clear it was clear. You could hear things. You could there was a sense of sort of, it being something that was different than what was going on prior to that. So I could see them seizing on that idea and trying to, I don't want to say exploit it because I don't think that's necessarily the right word, but they certainly weren't listening to Frank when he was saying these aren't ghosts. It's something else. It's almost unfortunate that his idea about it was sort of tossed to the wayside a little bit.
Well, he was probably doomed because when you think about this, I'm looking at this timeline right now and it looks like he started building these things in 2002.
Yeah, so that's right then.
What happened a year or two after that?
Ghost Hunters.
Ghost Hunters came out and it became one of the biggest reality shows in the world.
And maybe that community was the only community that was really listening to him or inviting him in, you know what I mean? So maybe he just sort of fell in with them kind of organically, even though he might have been semi-frustrated about it not being the way that he would have liked it to be. But I don't want to put words in his mouth.
He was in Colorado too. Yeah. And a lot of the ITC people were in Colorado who naturally would have been interested in this guy who's fiddling around with electronics, building radios to communicate with things that we can't see. So maybe it was always just kind of doomed that would happen. And there was no way out of it. There's actually a great, fantastic quote in this book about Frank. It says, Frank never gave up hope of being able to convince people of the true purpose for his boxes. Year after year, people in the group pages argued about them, about what they were meant for, and whether they actually worked in allowing spirits or ghosts to talk through them. Frank tried increasingly to tell these people that they were never designed for ghost communication, but rather for communicating with those on other planets and from other solar systems. That ghost communication was only a side benefit of the technology.
It's just a side effect.
What the heck?
Yeah.
And yet, nobody's sitting there using these to talk to extraterrestrials. They're sitting there trying to talk to the dead loved ones with them. Maybe that's, maybe there's something tragic about that. Is that it's much the drive to try and speak with somebody who's passed away is a lot stronger than maybe somebody from another planet.
Yes, that's a good point. Maybe, yeah.
This weird butting of heads that Frank continued to have with ghost hunters, you can actually see there's a documentary clip of this happening in real time, and there's something really weird happens in this clip. Frank has a group of ghost hunters come to his place to go into his garage where he shows them his workshop, where he builds these things. He kind of discusses the methodology behind them. They're very explicitly talking to him about using them to talk to spirits, to ghosts. Frank is consistently trying to change the subject to talk about how they're made to talk to aliens.
Yeah.
And then at one point, he literally captures a man in black.
Yeah. I mean, it is legitimately terrifying.
He's showing one of his devices, because he made some devices that actually had they had video components to them. They had TVs in them that worked in the same way. So they would sweep circuits. There would be white noise.
Gosh, that's scary.
Watch and listen to what comes out of this in this moment.
Now, I've applied the same tuning technique to these little TVs I've got over there.
Yes.
And I got one, it looks like a classic MIB, like a man in black.
Oh, wait, that was it?
Yeah. That's what I'm trying to find. There it is.
Go ahead and...
There. But it looks like an MIB, and there's all kinds of weird little images and stuff in there.
It's like a shadow person type of hat.
But that wolf image, that's actually, there's one of the guys on the group. Let's look at that.
That's a trip, how there's like an aura around it.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's an image of a saucer behind it.
Now, is that the only frame?
Yeah,
so it's one frame.
That's the only picture I've got of that.
Wow.
So creepy. What does that mean? The father and son we meet?
I don't know.
Frank, we monitor this.
Yeah. It's creepy because it's got like a bizarre, I mean, I've used the Frank's box so many times, and there's a weird language, there's a strangeness to it, and it just reminds me of some of the creepy things you hear.
Albert Bender, the guy who brought the man in black archetype into the public consciousness in the 50s, literally had the same kind of deal. They would manifest through the radio static, the men in black. And here we have Frank Sumption, 50 years later, having the same exact contact experience.
With men in black. And people aren't, I'm not even sure Frank was necessarily making that connection. He talks about MIB, of course, in that clip. But whether or not he thinks that that's the origination of who was telling him to build this thing, I don't know. Frank tells also in there a story about how he put something on his dresser and then left the room for 2 seconds, went back in, and it was gone. And there was a sense of paranoia there. He was, in this book, he talks about how he was nervous because there were strange sedans with mysterious men parked outside of his house for hours at a time.
We keep saying this. We keep talking about how the Frank's box feels and sounds different than a normal SB7. This is the mass-produced guy. This is the thing that's in all the television shows. It's what you guys created the Estes method around. This is the ghost box. This is the one everybody uses. What is it? You've, more than anybody I've ever met, have been using both of these devices over and over and over again in long sessions where it's just you listening to them. What is the difference between the two, Dana? What do you feel differently between the two?
Using the Frank's box feels as if you're sitting in the same room as whoever it is that you're listening to. And then using the SB7 feels more like you're on the telephone with someone. There's a sort of distance between them. And like I've said, there's a consistency with the pattern. You can choose the pattern when you're using an SB7. It's very easy to kind of get into a lull. There's something familiar about it over, a period of time. I've done it for hours sometimes in one sitting, just for hours.
Yeah.
So it's easy to kind of get used to the pattern of it. But it's difficult with the Frank's box because, again, you just sort of feel like you're being battered around. It's a very visceral experience versus the SB7, I think.
We've let the Frank's box run just open without headphones in it, just in a room, and the room has a vibe afterwards.
It does have a vibe.
We don't even like going into the room after that.
Yeah.
So it's a strange thing to try and quantify the difference between these two things. And it's been something that has bothered me since we have been able to experiment with one for a longer period of time. There's something about this feels alive to me.
That's
and
a good
I know
way.
that's a weird way to put it, but there's something about it that feels alive to me. And it's always made me a little bit uncomfortable because I've not really been able to explain it.
Yeah.
What is it about this thing that feels different? If this thing birthed this thing, what is it that happened between this and this that changed?
Yeah.
How did this become so sterile? Well, guess what? I think we figured it out.
Yeah.
Something stuck out to me while I was going through the schematics. Frank Sumption, this guy wanted other people to experiment with his stuff. He included whole diagrams of the circuits, even the things that he can't explain why they're there because they sort of telepathically came to him.
Yeah.
The entities gave him these ideas. Frank talks about here, he does not really understand how the Frank's box works, which is a strange thing to hear from somebody who built this device. His quote is, "I can just barely describe how I think this equipment works. I think it's akin to using the quantum soup of the universe as a carrier." So to me, that's him saying, I think it works synchronistically.
Yeah.
He was very, very adamant about the radio being the key component here, which I think is why everybody just sort of went, well, it's the radio that's special about this. I don't think that's the case. I think there's two different things happening. There's something that we'll talk about more in next week's episode, and then there's a secret key to the Frank's box that we'll talk about right now. He would build these things by finding old car radios. So car radios is what he would use to begin with. He started experimenting with stuff later on, different tuners from different devices. The one that we have is called the Ghost Man because it's a play on the Walkman. He was using a Sony Walkman tuner. Radio Shack tuners were a big one that he used. You and I remember building a Shack hack back in the day.
Yeah.
We'll show ours on camera. It's a little cheapo Radio Shack device.
Yeah, it was what ghost hunters would build because it was before any of the ghost boxes or the SB7s were invented. It was basically like a make-it-yourself one.
All you had to do was snip a wire in it, and then when you held down the button, it would just sweep through all the radio stations. So it just became a sweeping radio circuit. That's all that was there. And so because they were cheap, they were widely available, it was an easy way to create something that was sort of akin to what Frank was doing. Well, Frank would use all kinds of different tuners and experiment with them. He would put these things together, and then he telepathically got a message that said, you need more than this. It can't just be the sweeping radio. There needs to be something extra in there. It was something that he referred to as the echo box. What he would do is he would take the tuners, but instead of going straight into the audio output, he would run it into a little box that contained an electret microphone.
And he doesn't specify that it's important that it's an electret. He just said that it was just during that trance night. That was
it. In
the
all
schematics
of these,
he was told to put one in.
In all of these schematics.
So he didn't even really understand why he put it in there. He just did it because he was told to do it.
He just put it in there because he was told to do it. And he even straight up says, I don't understand why it works. I don't know what the deal is with it. The very first page of his thing here, he says, the system uses white noise that is amplified, filtered, rectified to provide a random voltage to tune voltage-tunable radio receiver modules that were removed from older digital car stereos. The randomly tuned radio modules provide a source of random audio that is sent to an enclosure I call an echo box for lack of a better name. The idea of the echo box was received by what I can only call telepathy, which indicated to me that there is at least some outside guidance working in tandem with the electrical components of this system.
I love that.
Yes.
That's so good. Okay.
That's the secret.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same thing as why the shittier EVP recorders record better EVPs. It's because they get a subtle fluctuation. Guys,
it's real-time EVP voices coming through that device.
And that is the one thing that is missing from these devices.
Yes.
Because it was never included in these devices because they focus too heavily on the radio function.
It's a radio that's again doesn't have an echo box.
It doesn't.
This is the secret.
That is the secret.
This is the secret to why the Frank's box is so much spookier and weirder is because it is the next evolution of what the ITC was supposed to be.
Yes.
It is the live EVP.
Yeah.
Because this bothered me. We were sitting there recording. This has been a couple weeks since we recorded the EVP episode, and it has not been able to leave my head this whole time. I'm sure that you guys have felt the same way since we recorded this episode where we were like, oh, it's the microphones. We didn't know that going into this, that this was going to be it. In fact, one of the things that Carl was sad we didn't talk about in the last episode was Connor was working on this episode about EVPs, and then we had this like meeting where Connor was like dejected.
Yeah, I thought we were busting EVPs because none of the logic that I had been told and thought was happening actually worked when I went from the ghost hunting textbook to the physics textbook.
It all fell apart.
And it fell apart in my head, and I was like, all right, well, our brains are just making it up. And there wasn't a simple answer. But then we sat down and we all sat around the couch that night. And I kind of went through my notes as we like to, kind of share periodically what we're looking into. And we're talking about that. We're going through the diagrams. We're going through everything. And naturally to us, before we ever looked into any of this, the word electret microphones started to become a consistency with the devices where we were like, well, these are the ones that seem to catch EVPs when they all have electret microphones.
Yeah.
That's where the ghost is. It was in the wrong. I was looking in the wrong chamber.
But that's the thing. This is what's so funny about this to me. Nobody was looking there ever. There's all these different ideas, and I'm sure. Listen, I know that there's going to be listeners who are going to be like, "Well, I've heard somebody say this, or I've heard somebody say this." It's very popular in the ghost hunting community to either say these things are recording voices that you can't hear with your ears, which we busted in the last episode. It just is impossible. Or that there's some kind of carrier wave thing that's happening with the radios. I don't think that's the case. I think that's why these things are so different. I think there's two different processes happening. I think the SB7 does have a psychic element to it if you use it correctly, which we'll talk about next week. But I think that the Frank's box is so spooky because it has that electric condenser microphone in it. I have a diagram here that I had to look up because I was like, I was questioning everything after the last episode. I was like, there's no way. So I've had like 3 weeks to think about this. The other day, I was like, okay, is this possible? This is a diagram that shows how the fixed charge in the electric condenser microphone, that fixed charge is what fluctuates depending on the pressure of the sound wave that goes into it. And so it changes that charge kind of like a sponge, and it turns that charge into a sound wave that gets recorded, right? Or that you can hear. Absolutely, electromagnetic fluctuations can change that charge. They can change the way that charge works. And so without a sound wave even reaching that diaphragm, it can translate that fluctuation, that electromagnetic fluctuation, into a charge that will come out sounding just like a normal sound.
It's perfect.
You hear it all the time. That's what the bzz, 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 if you have your phone like too close to a cheap electric microphone.
Yeah.
If there is something, if we believe that ghosts can manipulate the electromagnetic spectrum, if they know what they're doing, they could make something that sounds like a noise.
So with all of that being said, explain to people why this is strange. Why is that strange? And why is that different than this?
We always thought that the Frank's box produces weird sounds.
Yes.
It is producing weird sounds. You can hear it when you turn it on. The ghost does not exist in those sounds. The ghost exists in tiny electric fluctuations inside that echo chamber. And what we're hearing is what the ghost is changing inside that echo chamber. That's what makes sense. That's the only thing that makes sense to me now about how those are working. SB7s, all the other spirit boxes, the shack hacks, the tone generators, the things like that. They don't have that kind of a device going on.
Frank didn't even understand why he was putting an electric condenser microphone in here. He just telepathically was told to put one in there.
Yeah.
The reason that these things are so big is because there has to be enough space between the microphone and the original radio output. Otherwise, it'll have feedback.
Yes.
These things don't have those. That's why they're so tiny. It's literally just a radio sweep.
Yes.
That's it. It's a broken radio. Everybody always joked, these are just broken radios. No, this is a purposefully broken radio that has a microphone inside of it, a shitty microphone that electromagnetic radiation, the electromagnetic waves can influence.
So what you're hearing in real time is essentially like an EVP, but in real time.
Very potentially, yes.
On top of also radio.
On top of the radio and on top of white noise.
So you're hearing all of those things.
All of those things.
It's why people have such a completely different experience utilizing a Frank's box than they do an SB7.
Dana, think about how creepy it is, the way you described this.
Yes.
This sounds like you're in the room with something as opposed to sound like you're on the phone with something because one of them is working psychically and one of them is literally picking some weird electromagnetic fluctuations up.
Where I'm at now is EVPs aren't created by sound.
No.
EVPs are created through electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And that device is the only one in existence that I'm aware of that has the ability to do it in real time.
Yeah.
I know there's going to be a lot of people who are skeptical who are listening to this. Good, you should be. Anytime anybody has a crazy claim like this, you should be very skeptical of it. All that I'm trying to say and all that we're trying to say here is if you're looking for an explanation for where these weird sounds are coming from, I don't think it's coming from ghosts manipulating the brains of radio DJs to have them say the right thing at a certain time. I think that's a different process that we'll talk about next week. I think what's going on here is ghosts, if they are, whatever you want to call them, whether you think they're dead people, whether you think that they're a natural phenomenon, whether it's totally random, fluctuations in the electromagnetic field very easily influence the electric condenser microphone because it's shitty, it's cheap, and it's such a low voltage that things with that low of a voltage, some free-floating phantom, could fiddle around in there and create something that sounds like a sound, even when there's no sound making its way into the thing. That's what this diagram shows. I want to add one more piece of historical evidence to this that will make you, again, rethink how these things are probably working. There's a guy we left out of our ITC because everybody leaves him out. Nobody knows that this guy even exists. Only like hardcore ITC researchers ever talked to this guy. I had to manually translate this guy's book because there's not an English translation of it. There was a guy by the name of Franz Seidel. He wrote a book titled The Phenomenon of Transcendental Voices. This guy was an inventor. He won basically, or was nominated for basically a Nobel Prize. He was an electrical engineer. He created this thing that he called the psychophone. Now, the psychophone, this ties it all in. This is so crazy.
It's a cool name.
Number one, it's a cool-ass name.
Cool name.
He has a section in this book that are the methods of the voices, the character of the voices and their recording methods. The methods are the microphone method, the white noise method, the diode method, the self-transmitter method, the intermediate frequency method, and then there's just other devices. If you read this article by Popular Electronics, they say there is the microphone method, the radio method, the white noise method, the diode method. I think this guy translated this.
Whatever mysterious, it's either him or whatever mysterious writer, was directly inspired.
Directly inspired
Must have
this.
been. Yeah.
And this was from the 70s. This book is from the 71, I believe. The psychophone is a mixture of all of these different methods together. It's exactly what Frank did.
Yeah.
Frank put all those methods together. The white noise method, the radio method, and then the microphone method. He started to go, okay, well, maybe these entities need more electricity to speak to us. They need a higher electromagnetic field to speak to us. So this is something that I know, I'm sure you guys have probably heard this too. There's for a long time been an idea that ghosts need the electricity to manifest, right? So that's why you see there's EM pumps.
Sure, yeah.
Those are a device ghost hunters use, EM pumps. Some of them use like Jacob's ladders.
Yes, yeah.
That just shoot ions into the air. There's all kinds of different ideas like that. Well, he goes, okay, well, then I should start doing this. You know, he had the same idea that most everybody has. They need more energy. It'll help them manifest more energy. So he creates an oscillator field, a strong oscillator field, which creates like a big electromagnetic field, right? And he puts that in his device, into the psychophone. He got these responses. They said, Seidel, turn the lightning off. Lightning like an axe in the brain. They couldn't get through the field.
Oh, because it was too much.
It was too much. There was too much of an electromagnetic field. They could not puncture it. They could not manipulate it.
Yeah.
Which is what we were thinking about the phantom power in microphones.
Because it comes from electrical manipulation. If it's too strong of a brick wall, they can't get through that.
Yeah.
And they said, turn the lightning down.
Turn the lightning down.
It's cool.
Like an axe to the brain. This guy who directly inspired, I've no doubt, this popular electronics article.
Mm-hmm.
Which then found its way to that.
And then Frank creates this thing that has the electric condenser microphone, which is the easiest thing to manipulate with outside electromagnetic interference. And it also includes the white noise, and it also includes the radio, and gives you numerous ways, both, I think, psychically and literally, to channel weird shit from somewhere else.
Maybe it's also a bit of a long shot, but you said that Frank was stationed in Germany.
Oh,
I wonder if he spoke German or if he read German. If he could read that, then maybe he came across this.
Oh, stop. That's
at some
so
point
weird.
In time.
I mean, even the fact that he was in Germany. That's so strange.
He went from Germany to Colorado.
If he could speak
which is
German,
where all these people are coming from.
What is going on?
That's so
Those
weird.
two specific places. Yeah.
I want to stress that the thing that I keep noticing as we do these episodes is everybody's ignoring the importance of the electric condenser microphone. There's this book I referenced earlier by George Noory and Rosemary Ellen Guiley, Talking to the Dead. They talk a lot about Frank Sumption and the Frank's boxes in there, and they focus only on the radio aspect. They don't have a single mention that there's an electric condenser microphone in there, which is weird.
Mm-hmm.
It's weirder than other devices that do the same thing. And I think that so many people focused on that they went, these things are big and unwieldy. Let's just use the radio and break the radio and then create a ghost box out of it. I think they killed the ghost. I think they killed the ability to actually have a live EVP. It's not more electricity. It's not a bigger electromagnetic field. It's a weaker one that's easily influenced.
Yes, yeah.
So when you're building a ghost box, and I hope that there's people who are watching this now who are more electronically inclined than we are, I hope that this stuff inspires you to start tinkering with this type of thing, because there's a way to improve on this that even Frank wasn't aware of.
Yeah.
And I think it's to create something around the microphone being shitty.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to put it that way, but a weak electromagnetic field is what you're looking for, not a strong one. I don't think they need that. They're already here. They've always been here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they are able to influence those fields, you want one that's weak enough to be able to pick it up when they are in there fiddling around and then translate that into audio. Frank's schematics are there. We'll post them in the show notes. You can look at them yourself. You can build this type of thing.
Dana, you've listened to this more than other people. You've talked about what you think it sounds like. When you hear voices, how often are you inferring or completing a sentence on a Frank's box versus an SB7? Do you feel as though they get cut off more or less in either one?
I think what's interesting, that's an interesting question, because I do think that the Frank's box finishes its own sentences or its own words with much more than it does with the SB7. I also think that they're louder. And I find that specifically with the Frank's box, the voices are much more defined. They're clearer. There's less sort of guessing. And I think that they seem much more human, as weird as that sounds. They sound like real voices. This often doesn't sound like real voices to me. This will sound like a real person's voice.
The ones that Frank had on his website, and we'll link to his, like, the Wayback Machine had a couple of old ones that you can play from Frank in like 2011. They're voices.
Yeah, they do sound like voices. Really, they do.
If we follow along with what Frank's saying, that's not Frank's design.
Yeah, that's true.
That's their design.
Their design.
I mean, the thing is too, he didn't gatekeep anything. He gave everyone his plans and he told people to make them themselves. Like, he was very open and he shared a lot of his own experience with the world.
Wasn't he kind of awkward about giving them away?
Frank had a weird relationship with these boxes. He built them because he was obsessed with them. He made them over and over and over again. And he often gave them away to people the boxes told him should have them, or just sold them for the cost that it cost to make them, so he wasn't losing money on them. And then other people were selling them. People that he'd given, 4 or 5 to were taking these out and selling them for tons and tons of money, and they were ending up in the hands of people who were making up weird stories about them that weren't true, or that were bothering Frank, or using them for purposes they weren't intended for, maybe bothering the guys upstairs. Who knows?
Sounds like he wasn't really into ghosts at all, necessarily.
No.
It is worth saying, though, that he did eventually call them ghost boxes, like you said, but also he did claim to have pretty regular contact with his son, who was unfortunately murdered in a really sad way when he was a teenager.
Yeah.
That he would sometimes hear him through either a ham radio or through the boxes, things like that. So there's videos of him online talking about that aspect of it. So there was a little bit of a ghostly aspect to it for him, but it seems as though he kind of saw them as channels to alien contact.
Do you believe that an ordinary object can be cursed? You will. Join Greg and Dana Newkirk, 2 of the world's only full-time paranormal researchers and hosts of the Haunted Objects podcast, for a spine-tingling, interactive evening of true supernatural tales told by the very people who lived them.
And he starts to stand up, and I go, oh, that's it. I'm actually going to die. And I'm thinking, how long can I hold this guy off while Dana runs screaming into Gary, Indiana in the middle of the night?
Dare to lock eyes with the restless face. Uncover the dark secrets contained within the Catskills chrome. Learn the fiery truth behind the cursed crying boy paintings. And more. But that's not all. In this show, you'll leave with a ghost story of your own by becoming part of the Newkirk's most daring experiment yet. The creation of the world's most haunted dolls. Your energy. Your intent.
Oh my gosh, her eyes look like it just moved.
Your fears. All woven into vessels that only you can awaken. Haunted Objects Live. You'll laugh. You'll scream. You'll sleep with the lights on. Visit newkirktour.com.
Frank passed away in 2014, not too long ago, 10 years ago. And I remember it was a big loss. People were very upset about it. And, I didn't know Frank very well. We were Facebook friends, but it bummed me out, because I always wanted to meet the guy. But he got really into aliens by the end.
Yeah.
It was to the point where he was talking about the entities from a specific planetary system were coming to him. What was he saying? It was they were from the 6th planet.
Anunnaki.
The Anunnaki.
From the planet Nibiru.
Which was very big in the 90s and the early 2000s.
Sure. It's sort of a very kind of obvious narrative. It's the ancient aliens direction.
Ancient alien stuff.
Which is very adjacent to the paranormal. It's kind of makes sense that he would have kind of landed in that space a little bit.
He says that they had been in contact with him since his youth. He said that many people believed these beings were gods, but all he knew was that they were the ones who called him their lost purple princess.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of a moniker that it was like their nickname for him.
Yeah.
And he kind of owned it.
I think he didn't understand it at all, and he was like, "This doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't know why they keep calling me the Purple Princess." But it appears over and over and over in a lot of transcripts around these things talking to him, what they're saying to him. I think the implication was that he would be transformed into something when he died.
Yes.
And he went back to whatever planet system they were from.
Yeah.
And his soul was that thing that they were waiting on.
Yeah.
That entity they were waiting on.
That he would evolve into something different in the afterlife.
Yes.
That he was sort of preparing for it.
Yes.
Whether you believe it in or not, or you've gotten into the weeds of maybe some of the more problematic things around ancient aliens, which hopefully you have.
Aliens is problematic?
It is
What
not.
do you mean?
It is not surprising to me that that those two adjacent communities kind of tend to have overlap with certain types of people, for sure.
Sure.
Here's the catch. Like 2 episodes ago, we were kind of like chuckling at the channelers,
Yes.
who were basically taking on an alien persona and
Yes.
portraying that, right? Or they were speaking through them, however you want to phrase that. Now, here's the thing. We take Frank more seriously. He kind of says he was an alien too.
That's true.
But maybe my point is when you introduce a device in the middle, it's kind of taken more seriously. Why do you think that is versus channeling, and what are the differences between using just straight channeling and using a device?
I think that people take it more seriously because it's hard to believe someone, if that makes sense.
I think that's true. And I think Frank wasn't doing the vaguely racist caricatures
also
himself.
That, yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Important detail.
There wasn't somebody sitting there speaking in like an Indian accent who was clearly like a white person.
Yes. Yeah. I just think that it's easier for an observer to maybe couch disbelief if there's something that seems vaguely scientific.
Maybe that's it.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe the person doing the channeling doesn't need this tool to do it, but there's something for the person who's observing the experience that it allows them to give themselves permission to maybe jump into the magic circle a little bit more.
I think that there's always a problem when it's just coming from a person. And whether you recognize this consciously or unconsciously, you know that a person has an ego.
Yes.
And you know that a person is always kind of trying to do something to benefit their own aims.
Yeah.
And so, when you see somebody who's like, well, no, I'm not influencing this at all. You're getting out of this, whatever you're trying to get out of this third-party system, whatever it is, it's easier to buy into it, I think. It's easier to, project your own feelings into it and read into it what you need to get out of it. And in fact, there's some ITC people who believe that that's the whole point, is that these devices actually make you more psychic. Instead of having to rely on a third party to tell you psychically what you're supposed to hear.
I see.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I mean, a lot of people have a very hard knee-jerk reaction to like psychic mediums.
Yeah.
And I think for very good reason.
Yeah.
I think that when it's somebody who's trying to tell you something about how to act or be the bridge between you and a loved one or you and God, any of that stuff, it feels bad.
Yeah.
It feels like a bad thing when somebody's placing themselves between you and the other side.
Yeah.
It feels more neutral when it's a device.
Yes.
When you know that there's not somebody who's sitting there filtering messages from beyond through their own ego.
Yes.
Let's pretend like channelers are totally real, right?
Sure.
So a channeler is totally real. All you can deal with is the mental dictionary that's within their own mind.
Yes, sure.
But technology can go beyond that.
Sure.
Like, if it's just me and I can channel Raudive, right? I've never heard the word Silmarillion.
Right.
And so it's not going
Which
to
was kind of the
work.
point of them using that word.
It kind of is, though. That was kind of the point, which is a great idea.
It is a great idea.
But Dana did know the word. So, where's that line? I don't know. But it's a cool thought experiment.
Maybe it's like art. You don't like having somebody else tell you what a piece of art means. You need to determine what that means yourself. And so when somebody is making themselves the medium for that, literally the medium, it's very difficult for some people. I think people who are independent people who like to think for themselves, people who like to make up their own minds, it's very difficult for those types of people to listen to somebody who's saying, I am going to tell you what the aliens are trying to tell you.
Yeah.
But it can only come through me. I don't know. Look at the Franks box. The Franks box is it's the culmination of a ton of other people's research.
Yes. Yeah.
It's what happens when people are working together on something instead of like trying to keep their thing. Usually, again, there's an ego thing involved in it. So when somebody's releasing all of their schematics and saying like, hey, this is how this thing works, improve it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let's try and fix this thing together. Maybe you have an idea I don't have. Let's fix this thing, actually build something that can hear the voices from beyond.
Yeah.
Just send us a copy too. We have a P.O. box.
Yes,
listed in the description.
Yes. We want your stuff. Build us weird stuff. We'll use it. We promise we'll use it. It might be in Hellier. We're literally, one of our friends right now is building us a special box called the Estes box that we're going to use in the 3rd season. I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, though, because as much as I was never a fan of the SB7 Spirit box, I think there is a good way to use it. And it was Carl and Connor who convinced me of that. They created something that also took the paranormal community by storm and changed the way that people are investigating ghosts even now. It's actually been a bizarre thing to see this, to watch this happen.
Yeah.
When they came up with the Estes method, it changed my mind about spirit boxes. Before I really had an opportunity to play with the Franks box. I've seen the way that you've engaged with it. And so I don't want to completely discount that, which is why next week's episode is all about that, because this is the truth. Very few people will ever have a Franks box.
Yeah.
It's not very accessible. Despite Frank wanting it to be accessible. Maybe you're listening to this now. Maybe you're an engineer and you will be able to build these types of things. Just don't forget the microphone. Keep the microphone in it.
And remember Frank.
And remember Frank when you're doing it.
Yeah. Frank seemed to be kind of a quiet guy, maybe in a community of people that were much louder than him.
Yeah.
And, he seemed to be somebody who maybe didn't sort of stand out and wasn't someone who was a big personality. And I think it's a real shame because I think that he's someone who really does deserve to be remembered, specifically as the guy that he was. He pioneered a very, very important thing, especially for paranormal investigators. And it would be a real shame if Frank was forgotten because of that. So I think he's somebody who's worth remembering. I think Frank's boxes are a really beautiful and important piece of the history of this subject matter and this field of study for a lot of people in research. And I think that it would be a cool thing if people decided at a certain point in the future, if you have the ability to create your own, to just remember that Frank was the guy. He was the guy who did what he did, and maybe bringing him forward and remembering him now and continuing to remember him is kind of a cool thing, and would be a cool thing for him.
This is the thing. This is an imitation of what Frank was building, and they didn't do it the way that Frank actually did it. This is easier to get, though. And I still think there's a use for it.
Yes.
It just requires a little bit of extra work.
Yeah.
Dana can attest to that.
Absolutely.
The difference between the two of them is this is mass produced. This thing was literally dictated by the voices from beyond. The people who were building things like the Franks box didn't even understand what they were building, and they admitted it. This thing was designed by an otherworldly mind and built into our universe, which is what makes the Franks box an incredibly haunted object.
The Haunted Objects podcast is hosted by Greg and Dana Newkirk, produced by Connor J. Randall, with cinematography and editing by Carl Pfeiffer, and features exclusive artifacts from the Newkirk Museum of the Paranormal. To learn more about the artifacts featured in this episode, take part in live interactive experiments, and enjoy exclusive Haunted Objects content, become a museum member at patreon.com/paramuseum. This has been a Planet Weird production for Spectre Vision Radio.
Do you think that it's a little bit funny with this Popular Electronics article? I was thinking that, you know how it goes through, here's this method, this method, this method. Do you think Frank didn't realize that the article was saying just to do one of the 4 methods?
Oh, and he's like, I'll do them all.
And he put all of them in one box.
Yeah, maybe.
Listen, I mean, that's what Seidel was doing back in the day.
Yeah.
He did the same thing. So great minds.
Mm-hmm.
Combining ideas is a beautiful thing.
Combining ideas.
Yeah, I mean, he probably was like, why would I just do one of these things when I could do all of them? Like, why, you know?
Sure.
It's actually pretty smart.
Sure.
And when you're confused, remember your dreams because the aliens will tell you.
The aliens will tell you it's true. Listen, if some voice from beyond reaches out to you and tells you to build something, maybe you should do it.
Yeah.
Because the world might benefit from it in a very weird way. You know, in 40, 50 years, there might be a group of people sitting in a basement somewhere, like freaking themselves out because you're talking to them through it.
Oh my God.